train and the platform.
Good evening and welcome to Life After 5. I'm Catherine Goldsmith.
And I'm Chaz, a redhead. We have a great show lined up for you tonight. Jason Arnott is in to discuss his new novel, Ghoster, and we take a trip down the rabbit hole to check out The Hunt for the Smoking Caterpillar, a new immersive escape room experience.
We'll visit a quite unusual theatre space currently residing on Portobello Road and see multi-award-winning cake artist Cynthia Stroud in action as she decorates a Remembrance Day-inspired cake.
But first, some great music. Jojo and the Woods are here to perform 2 songs from their new album, Moonchild. Here is This the Dream?
Is this the dream I am? Is this giving up? Is this how it feels to let go? Or am I just getting old? Is this the dream I am? Is this growing up? Is this the dream I am? Or is this the dream? Is this the beginning of the end? Have I finally let you in? 'Cause I'm no good at half out half, yeah. And I'm no good at giving in. My heart's gotten real sick. No love was ever gonna fix it. I'm never gonna live 'cause I chose to dream instead. Is this the dream I am? Is this giving up? Is this how it feels to let go? Or am I just getting old? Is this the dream I am? Is this growing up? Is this the dream I am? Or is this the dream? And I'm no good at giving in. I gave you my perfect skin, my bright eyes and the shoes that I've been walking in. And I'm never gonna live 'cause I believed in you instead. I'm never gonna live 'cause I believed in you instead. Is this the dream I am? Is this giving up? Is this how it feels to let go? Or am I just getting old? Is this the dream I am? Is this giving up? Is this the dream I am? Is this the dream I am? Is this the dream I am? Is it I am? Or is this the dream?
Is this the dream? Might need a moment of self-reflection after that. One group who is nowhere near giving up is the Small Truth Theatre. They perform plays in a caravan. We recently went to Portobello Road to watch some of the performances and speak to the people behind the Kensington Caravan Festival.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome
Welcome to the Caravan Theatre. This is our first show of the day. If you'd like to take your seats, please.
Is that it though? Sweets.
Sweets are good.
Sweets aren't happiness.
You can share sweets. Sharing's happiness.
I used to think they grew those big mushrooms here on account of the name, but it turns out some fancy admiral captured a town in Panama called Portobello ages ago.
We wanted to place the caravan in the heart of the local community. And so we thought, what is the place which has lots of different types of people coming to it? And Portobello Road was the obvious choice, really. So what we were wanting to do is create a world where people could step inside a theatrical space in an environment that feels comfortable for them. It was about bringing theatre to an audience that wouldn't necessarily go into a theatre. We don't charge a ticket price, but what we wanted was for the theatre to be of a really high quality. So we've commissioned plays from award-winning writers.
We did our first project in December, which was a one-off project, and the response was just so unique and special. I just thought there's so much more potential that could come out of this, and so that's where we grew the idea from, to do a new writing festival. We've commissioned 6 brand new pieces, and over 3 weekends we've done 2 new plays alternating throughout the whole thing.
We do 8 shows a day, and they run every half an hour. We start at 11 o'clock, and then our last show is at 4:30. We can get 15 in here, and the actors.
Having such a close encounter, it's much more of an experience, I think, for the audience and also for the performers. Everyone's equal together in the space. There isn't a sort of, we're sitting quietly in the dark watching the stars shine. Everyone is sort of stars shining in the space together.
This is from the library.
Yes.
This is the form for my library card.
Yes.
You from the library?
Yes.
ID.
Sorry.
Identification, please. You could be anyone.
I'm a librarian.
So you say I'm coveting this book. Quite a sad, lonely figure, really, in lots of ways. And then I get an unexpected visit from this woman who is searching for this book. So part of the story is me trying to keep it secret, but then she discovers it. So it's about
Different ways to happiness, really, isn't it?
yeah, and about connection and how the book offers us a way to connect with each other.
My name is Olive, like the garnish. What's your names? What's your name?
Federica.
The play is called Enough, and it's by Abby Zakarian. It is a short play about a girl called Olive who lives in a caravan. It's essentially a love story to Portobello. Initially, it's quite nerve-wracking to be in such a small space with your audience, but it's really lovely because you don't usually get that one-to-one interaction with people. And because Olive is essentially here to make people smile, I think it's really necessary that she is so close to everyone and gets in and talks to them, you know, face to face.
I just saw both shows. I loved them. Really interesting way that they kind of smashed through the fourth wall, because you can't really have a fourth wall in a space that's that small.
It was such an intimate experience, and you're right there, right next to them, sort of eyeballing them, and I've got a lot of respect for performers who do that, because it must be quite nerve-wracking for them, but it was wonderful because you're one of about 8 people, and she gives you biscuits and olives, and it was lovely.
Biscuit?
The plays that we've commissioned for this festival, they're now part of the repertoire of the caravan, so we'll be bringing those back and doing those over the next couple of years. But we'll also be commissioning some new plays next year with new writers. We then are back in December, and we're going to bring the show that we did last Christmas back to Portobello Road. It's a play called The Ballad of Notty Hull, and it's Christmas Carol, but it's all characters that are connected to this area, to create this intimate cultural space within our busy London Portobello Market Saturday kind of crowd. I think that's really special as well.
Who would have thought so many people could fit in a caravan? If you are interested in finding out more about the Kensington Caravan, you can check out their website, smalltruththeatre.com, or find them parked on Portobello Road the first 3 weeks of December. Yesterday, we all celebrated Remembrance Sunday, an annual event to commemorate the contribution of British and Commonwealth military and civilian servicemen and women in the 2 world wars and later conflicts. In the studio today to help us honour these men and women is Cynthia Stroud. You're a cake artist, and she's going to be creating a Poppy Day cake and demonstrating her award-winning decorating techniques. Hello, Cynthia.
Hi, Catherine.
It's lovely to have you with us. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. So we are doing a poppy-themed cake today?
Absolutely.
And how are you starting then?
So I wanted to demonstrate quite a visually impactful cake. Obviously, keeping in mind the poppies, which are very iconic of the day.
Yes.
And but also do it in a way that anybody watching at home could attempt it. And I'm first of all recreating what would be the field, and that's really easy to do. I'm just using lots of different shades of green. Any shades of green you've got at home would do, in paste, and thinning it down with some, in this case, vodka or any clear spirits.
Yeah.
And then just using different size paint brushes, just doing brush strokes going up the cake.
I see. So while you're doing that, do you want to tell us how you got started baking cakes?
I've been baking since I was about 8 with my mum. It was our little bonding thing to do. And even when I worked in an office, so I finished my master's and I went and worked in an office. But I loved, my favourite day was the baking day, which was Friday. It was our
best kind of day.
Best. You know what? You get to go to work and eat cake.
Yes.
And call it team bonding, even better.
That sounds ideal.
It was pretty phenomenal. So when I had my son and I didn't want to really leave him and go back to work, I decided to, just do the thing that most people at work kind of knew me for, which was baking. And I thought at the time my target was to make 1 wedding cake a month.
Okay.
And that just kind of exploded once I set up the business. And at the height of it, I was making about 80 wedding cakes a month.
Oh my goodness, that's a lot of wedding cakes. Now, I know that you do choose to put flowers on your cakes a lot, as we are here. What is it about flowers that inspires you?
Nature itself is an incredible muse. I love the depth of texture, colours, nature suggests things to you that you wouldn't necessarily think about. If you had a colour palette, you might think, well, those two wouldn't go together. And literally, I'll step out my front door and have a look, and there'll be like or even a weed flower that looks so beautiful. I realise, actually, those colours blend really well.
OK, and are there any cakes that you remember more fondly than others that you've made?
You know what, I think every time I'm asked that question, I always think about the most challenging cake I made, which is, well, I say my team and I, we made a cake that had to be over 6 foot tall for the debutante ball.
Wow, that's a lot of cake.
It is a lot of cake. And, I mean, the bottom tier was just over 2 foot in diameter, but the challenge within that was, of course, you can't transport a 6 foot tall cake, so we had to assemble it on site in 30 minutes.
No pressure.
No
pressure at all. Well, this is looking great already, Cynthia.
Thank you.
I'm really excited to see how it looks when it's finished, actually. So you keep working, and we'll check back in a little bit. And while Cynthia gets on with her creation, we'll take a quick break, but stay with us for writer and YouTuber Jason Arnott. He's here to discuss his new book, Ghoster.
Hello.
Happy Valentine's Day! Lucy?
My father's first car.
The public library.
In my grandmother's bathroom.
That's it. Almost!
Pearson Education. We all start somewhere.
My mummy died to the zoo one time. There was a caterpillar and played with my sister toys. we turn round and round and round, and then we get off. That'll be my best day.
Did you know? The optimum temperature of the human body is 37 degrees Celsius. Below this, human flesh begins to freeze. The cold penetrates so deep it settles into muscles, tendons, and even bone marrow. At this stage, the human body will do anything to get out of the cold. Anything. Please, give them another choice. Donate.
Welcome back to Life After 5. We're here with author and YouTuber Jason Arnop. Jason's newly published book, Ghoster, tells the story of a young woman who finds that she's being haunted after sneaking a peek at her missing boyfriend's phone. Welcome, Jason.
Hello there.
Hello, it's really lovely to see you. So can you briefly tell us a little bit about the book and maybe what inspired it as well?
Yeah, the book is about a paramedic called Kate Collins who's had a Tinder whirlwind romance. And after 3 months of this romance, she's about to move in with her boyfriend when he ghosts her. Hence the title.
Yeah.
And there's a few other meanings of that word too in there. But he vanishes. When she breaks into his flat, taking quite extreme measures to find out what's going on with him, all his stuff's gone apart from his mobile phone. And so as a self-identified social media addict, she has a big choice to make. Does she break into his phone and find out what's going on, or does she not?
And you'll have to read the book to find out.
I know. Although it would be a pretty short book if she didn't.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
In fairness.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Now, the book focuses on themes, obviously, of digital dependency, as you say. What other themes are there in the book?
Well, I think digital dependency is the main preoccupation of it, and it's just exploring it, really. It's because I love it, and I love technology, I love the online world, but at the same time, I can't help but wonder what it's done to our brains already and what it might do. So it's... But the thing is, you know, my books might come across as some kind of polemic against the online world, but they're really not. It's just that if you're trying to write a scary novel, you can't get much mileage out of lovely WhatsApp conversations. You know, you have to go for the dark side, don't you?
I suppose you do.
Could you talk about some of the true stories that found their way into the book? I know that I think there's a note at the back where you say there were some true stories that got in there.
Yeah, well, that really came from, I made Kate a paramedic and then instantly regretted it because suddenly I had to know what a paramedic does.
Yeah.
I don't know why I did that.
Yeah, there was Kate encountered some crazy things as a paramedic. Are they based on true stories?
Well, actually, yeah, I had a research person who was brilliant. I found an actual paramedic called Victoria. She was just absolutely amazing. She gave me everything I needed, including mad stories, such as a mad, naked guy on this drug called PCP, as it turned out, who chased the ambulance crew into their ambulance, so they're locked inside, jumped on the roof, jumped up and down, and then went through the roof, because it's just made of fiberglass.
Of course,
shockingly. I don't know why they don't make them of something that won't allow mad, naked people to...
This is the same mountain man.
Yeah.
Plummeted through that. Fantastic. Since the book covers a lot of issues with technology, what is your relationship with technology?
I'm totally into it, but also kind of conflicted about that because, you know, it's like everybody. I think everybody is locked in their own kind of quest to find balance in their relationship with their device, which is glued to their hand for most of the day.
Yeah.
Do you have a particular technological weakness? Do you have your poison of choice, I guess?
Well, I mean, as an author, I'm kind of doomed to promote myself on social media. So, in a way, I probably couldn't get off it even if I wanted to.
Yeah.
But I like it as well. There's so many great things about social media. It's great for holding large institutions to account. It's great for activism. It's great for making people feel less alone. You know, you're never alone with social media. Yeah. And that's the thing that Kate Collins suffers from in Ghoster. Her main driving fear is being alone.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, the next question I have to ask, when you're speaking to a writer, the question everyone asks, why did you go into writing?
Well, Why did I? Well, when I was a kid, Doctor Who got me into both scary fiction and writing. I've still got exercise books full of ludicrous comic strips, Doctor Who comic strips that I drew, and Doctor Who got me into the scary side of things. I had a bit of a detour as a rock journalist for about for about 14 years.
Not a bad detour.
Yeah, but it wasn't. You know, when I was a kid, I never thought to myself, "Oh, I'd love to grow up to be a journalist."
Yeah.
I don't think many people do really. You know, whereas author, eventually I got back into it.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that it was Doctor Who that inspired you, because you've actually written some Doctor Who audiobooks. Yes. And you've written for a lot of other properties, actually, not just Doctor Who. I know you've done something with Black Mirror as well, did Inside Black Mirror, and you wrote a series of novels featuring everyone's favourite happy camper, Jason Voorhees, in some Friday the 13th adaptations. What is it like working on somebody else's project, somebody else's property?
Well, it's great, especially if you're into it. I've been very lucky that every single one of the properties I've worked for in a tie-in kind of way has been stuff I love. I mean, writing a Black Mirror book, behind-the-scenes book about Black Mirror, fantastic. You know, who wouldn't want to hang out with Charlie Brooker and Annabelle Jones for 3 days straight, quizzing them about Black Mirror? And, yeah, Friday the 13th, I've always loved that. Doctor Who. The only thing is, after a while, in the tie-in world, it's fantastic. You get to play in this big sandpit with really fun toys, but then you kind of have to hand them back at the end.
Yeah.
And so eventually it's nice to kind of build your own empire and write your own novel.
Yes. Speaking of your own empire, as it were, a lot of your work falls into sort of sci-fi horror.
Yeah.
What draws you to that genre in particular?
Well, horror and scary stuff is just a great big ball of catharsis, isn't it? And vicariously experiencing worst-case scenarios. Horror is a bit like a roller coaster. You get to go on this thing and you feel like you're experiencing danger, but you're not really. And so that's what it's all about. Yeah. Worst case
scenario. Fun doing that.
Yeah. Funnily enough, I do hate roller coasters.
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can go on roller coasters so long as they don't go upside down, which is most roller coasters.
I was going to say,
not
much chance.
Yeah.
You run a confessional booth on your website, right?
Yes.
So how does that help you with your process?
I don't know if it does. Well, it's my Sunday confessional booth is a place. It's a mailing list for writers. They can sign up, and every week, every Sunday, I write to them and say, what did you create this week? And so it's designed to be kind of an accountability, motivational tool for them, where they know this email is coming from me every week, and so they might get more done if they know that I'm going to ask them.
I like that.
Yeah.
What service you provide.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
I like it.
Absolutely.
And then finally, I think it's the question everyone's been thinking about. The book is called Ghoster. Ghosting has many meanings.
Yes.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Ooh.
I actually don't know. I'm still... I mean, my whole thing, actually, my first novel, The Last Days of Jack Sparks, was about a guy who set out to prove the supernatural doesn't exist, which you can never do because we don't know. We don't know anything, really. I mean, I think science is like a big framework, and outside of that, then who knows?
Who knows?
There's no greater fear than fear of the unknown.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
H.P. Lovecraft.
Box ticked. Right. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Just before we go, where can people find you online?
Yeah, well, I mean, considering I've written a book about online addiction, they can find me in far too many places. There's jasonarnop.com, of course, and my YouTube channel is called Jason Arnop's Terrifying House of Obsession. Kept it light and snappy. Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Jason. While I take a quick moment to follow Jason on Habbo Hotel and Club Penguin, we set out to see how well public perception matches box office success. On today's End of the Decade, we look at the top 3 films of the 2010s.
If I was going to hazard a guess, probably the first of the most recent trilogy of Star Wars movies.
It's a Tarantino film, and it's about Hitler.
Call Me By Your Name. I literally only watched it last week, and I haven't been so enthralled with the film in a very long time.
Maybe Endgame is the second most successful in terms of box office success.
I want to say 500 Days of Summer. Now, not a lot of people, it's a bit of a Marmite sort of film, but I really quite like it.
Moonlight, let's go with Moonlight.
I think it was called Boy, and it was the journey from the very start of like a young boy's life, and it was shot in real time.
The Lion King.
To be honest, it may sound very stereotypical, but I think it ushered in a whole kind of new genre of sci-fi, which was kind of like Interstellar, basically.
So that was one of my guesses, so that's pretty good.
I did really like it.
Yeah, okay, that doesn't surprise me. Hey, Star Wars. Yeah, okay, that doesn't surprise me.
I completely agree. I'm not surprised.
Ah, it is surprising. I mean, at the same time, seeing it, it's like, oh, okay, I understand. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm surprised Frozen hasn't made it into the top 3.
Avengers, Star Wars, and more Avengers. Disney has dominated the decade at the box office. Now, let's take a moment to check back in on Cynthia's progress. How are you getting on?
Very well.
Good. So, obviously, we've done the base layer of decoration.
Yes.
So we're talking about the actual poppies now, aren't we?
Yes. So I am creating the poppies with just a simple 5-petal cutter.
Okay, so nothing particularly fancy.
No, this is just something most people would have at home. If you have played with Play-Doh, you probably have something similar.
How did you know, Cynthia?
You know, I won't tell anyone. And so if you cut out you just roll your icing fairly thin and cut it out. Obviously, if you're making, you know, like inanimate-looking poppy, then you could just use it as it is.
Okay.
But I quite like the form of poppies in nature, how almost it looks almost transparent, you know.
Yeah,
so
very delicate.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is where this comes in. This little tool is called a ball tool. If you haven't got one at home, it's absolutely fine. You can just use a rounded edge of a dining knife.
Okay.
But just dip it in corn flour first.
Oh, so it doesn't stick?
So it doesn't
stick.
Got it.
Okay, that's
then
good.
You just want to keep rubbing it towards the edge of the petal. You can see how they're getting thinner and thinner.
It makes a difference quite quickly, actually, doesn't it?
Very, very quickly.
Oh, that's really clever and just so easy to do as well.
Really, really easy.
And shop-bought sort of fondant and icing, is that fine to use?
That's exactly what I'm using. I didn't want to use any specialist tools because it wouldn't be fair to the person at home who's going to attempt this and think, oh, it's not working.
Yeah, I like that.
The key with shop-bought is, of course, knead it through until when you bend it, it doesn't crack. If it's cracking, it's not ready. And
I see.
You can just add some coconut oil.
Okay.
Or Trex in there. Just make sure that it's nice and pliable. And then when you're done kneading it, let it rest for about 2 to 3 minutes before you roll it out.
We're getting all the top tips. So, obviously, we need the little black bit in the middle of the poppy. So how do we do that?
A very, very scientific method. You just roll it in.
Easy.
In your palm, exactly. Until it's a bit like, you just want the size of like a tiny little pea. And then using some more of the vodka, you could actually use a dab of water for this. You place that on there and you press it in. Then using the bowl tool, you want to flatten that a little bit.
Yeah.
Out. And then to make it blend quite well, because in nature it's a bit of a graduation from the black to the red.
Yes.
You can either use some of the green that you were painting with, or even just pure alcohol or water should start to melt the black in the middle and give it that nice graduation.
Sort of draws it out.
Correct.
And then you've got them sitting on this tin foil.
Exactly. Now, there are specific tools like flower formers, but the way poppies occur in nature and because of what I stand for, you've got to understand, Catherine, I set up my business with very little money.
Yes.
So I was very good at adapting household items.
Well, that's what we like. So it means we get to do it.
Absolutely.
Now, everything seems to be shaping up really nicely. So we'll be back in... thank you. We'll be back in a little while to see what the finishing touches look like. But now it is time for News of the Day.
We start with literature. The works of William Shakespeare have been given a digital makeover in an effort to inspire the Instagram generation to connect with arguably the world's greatest playwright. As a result, the Royal Shakespeare Company has teamed up with Adobe to try to encourage more young people to engage with the bard's work. The director of the company, Jackie O'Hanlon, added that it was written 400 years ago, but we're always asking, what does it mean to us now? It's all part of wider efforts to encourage creative education and art access for young people. Woody Allen and Amazon have finally ended their legal battle. The filmmaker sued Amazon for $68 million when the online giant ended his 2007 exclusive contract without ever releasing the film A Rainy Day in New York. Amazon justified their decision, claiming Woody Allen made insensitive remarks about the Me Too movement, plus accusations by his adopted daughter that he molested her when she was a girl, allegations which Allen has denied. Last Friday, the director and Amazon settled their differences in court. A Rainy Day in New York has been released worldwide, except in the United States. Robert Freeman, the photographer behind some of the most famous images of the Beatles, has died aged 82. Freeman shot some of the band's most memorable album covers, including With the Beatles, one of the most parodied covers in rock, plus Beatles for Sale and Rubber Soul. Paul McCartney posted a lengthy online tribute saying, "I will miss this wonderful man, but will always cherish the fond memories I have of him." The socks that Michael Jackson wore when he did his first famous moonwalk on the NBC special in 1984 are expected to fetch at least $1 million at auction. According to GottaHaveRock'n'Roll.com, the socks are described as being in very good stage-worn condition. Jackson reportedly gave the socks to Frank DeLeo, his manager, along with a signed letter of authentication, which is included as a part of the auction lot. Howard Weitzman, attorney for MJ's estate, said Frank DeLeo was not even Michael's manager at the time and claims the person who made the socks worn at the NBC special has confirmed these are not the originals. The socks will go up for auction on the 13th of November this year, but we cannot confirm if they've ever been washed. And that's all for the news of the day. Thanks, me. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, I'll sit down with reviewer Thomas Ralph to discuss a new immersive comedy escape room experience, The Hunt for the Smoking Caterpillar. See you in 2.
The house is warm. Oh! Sweet dreams.
He's here! He's here!
Careful.
He's fine. Jack! Jack, please!
That wasn't the card you meant to read.
What was the card I was meant to read?
I don't know. It was more formal. It was less...
Anatomical? I made it with my bum.
My father's first car.
The public library.
In my grandmother's bathroom.
That's it, that's it. Almost!
Pearson Education. We all start somewhere.
Welcome back. The Hunt for the Smoking Caterpillar is a new immersive comedy theatre escape room, and a mouthful to say, I might add. A few weeks back, Thomas Ralph from London Escapists had the opportunity to check it out. Welcome, Thomas.
Thank you.
Before we get into your experience, let's take a look at a short promotional video for The Hunt for the Smoking Caterpillar. very mysterious. So, Thomas, walk me through the escape room itself. What was it like?
Yeah, so it's more of an immersive theatre experience than an escape room. So we got in, got upstairs in the function room of the bar where it's on, introduced by the White Rabbit, one of the characters. Got to speak to the Baron. The Baron was introducing what we were doing, why we were there, explaining the hunt for the smoking caterpillar. The clue's in the name. That's what we were trying to find. And essentially, we were then let loose for most of an hour to go and talk to the other characters, to solve some puzzles, open up some boxes, win some gold. One of the gold pieces, the currency of the game.
Interesting. So you said one of the first people you encountered was the White Rabbit. Was that right?
Yes, that's right.
So what was the White Rabbit's sort of wider function within this story?
So the White Rabbit was a bit of a modern-day bureaucrat and managing operated a little shop, managing some admin tasks, responsible for minor crimes, all of these types of things. So each of the characters had their own little backstory.
Oh, yeah, and the person in charge is
the Baron.
The Baron's in charge.
Yeah.
So is the Baron sort of in charge of the gold distributions?
Yeah, I mean, each character had their own gold. You could win gold by succeeding in certain tasks. You could spend gold. They had these signs up saying bribery is encouraged. You could bribe other people if you wanted to, or buy information or buy clues and so on.
And there was a character called Poppy as well?
Yes, that's right. So Poppy was one of the characters. We met her very early on when we were playing. We got to see her. She was learning how to sing and learning how to find love again, operating a little shop, running a beauty contest. Really, really engaging character, and really well run.
Excellent. So I know that there was a sort of split between puzzles and more sort of quests. Could you tell me about some of the quests you got sent on?
Yeah. So we had to. So one of the things about partway through was a sort of a set piece. The Baron actually pulled me aside and said, we've got some investigating to do. We need to check about some missing cabbages because cabbages are very valuable these days. And the Baron asked us to go and hunt for missing cabbages, and we found one in a bucket near enough to one of the characters where we were in the room, and had to then attach the evidence to it. And we actually had a show trial where I was prosecuting.
Oh,
I got
roped in.
I got roped in to help prosecute one of the characters for nicking a cabbage, and then the rest of we had defence lawyers from one of the other teams, the defendant, and then show trial, definitely show trial before proceeding to the.
Excellent. So yeah, it seems like there's a lot in the area of interactive theatre going on, but obviously it says escape room as well. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty of what makes an escape room. The puzzles.
Yeah, the puzzles.
How are the puzzles?
Most of the puzzles that were distinct from the characters were locked boxes where there was gold or some other clues or something inside, and you had to solve some way of opening it. And some of these were your traditional find a combination based on something in the room. Some of them you had to find a key. Some of them you needed to interact with characters. So there was that crossover.
So there was a crossover.
Yeah, crossover between the two, and the characters might be able to tell you or help you find the items. And in the boxes, generally, as I say, you found gold, and the more gold you got, the richer you were. Well, it's like, what do pounds make rich people, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, a typical escape room, you wouldn't get more than one group of 4, 5, maybe 6 in there, but this is an event where you're sort of free to move around, and it's for up to 25 people.
Yeah.
What's it like having 25 people trying to solve the same things
everything at once? Yeah, I mean, we were lucky, I think, in that there was a transport disruption on the tube on the day I was coming, and so there was 14 of us in total. We divided into teams of 2 or 3. That worked out really well. I think had there been more than a couple of people more, it might have been a bit crowded, but it meant we could all go off in different directions. There was tons and tons of stuff to do across 2 different rooms between boxes and clues and characters and everything else, and so you never really felt like you were on top of one another. You could go off and solve things. Once some of the puzzles were solved, they were solved. So if somebody had opened up the key...
right, so there's no reset.
There's no reset. So once someone had opened up a box and taken all the gold coins, you couldn't go and open up and get more gold coins. But the majority of them, the characters deployed hints and tips and assisted people as well to make sure things moved along. Interesting.
Well, one final question. Yeah. The hunt. Would you recommend the hunt for the smoking caterpillar, or more importantly, would you go again?
I think it's a great interactive theatre experience. If you're attached to escape rooms like I am, it's really different. It was very, very different from what I'd previously done. I'd definitely do something like that again.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Hopefully you'll find that pesky smoking caterpillar next time. So, how is Cynthia getting on with that cake?
Well, while Chaz has been in Wonderland, I've been watching Cynthia make some amazing progress in such a short time. So you've stuck a few of the poppies on now?
I have.
And how have you done that?
I've just used piping gel, which is actually what you use to recreate things like lakes or ponds on a cake, because it dries completely clear like water, but it looks as if you've got a pool of water.
So that's good if you're like me and you make a mess.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay.
Or if you're doing this at home and you haven't got piping gel, because, well, why would you? You could also just use some honey.
Oh, wow, and that will stick it?
It will stick it. Honey's a great adhesive, provided the flour you're sticking on, it's not too heavy.
Okay.
And what you do, you want to just dab some of the piping gel or some of the honey on the cake, not so that you've got a thick layer, but just enough to make it tacky. And then gently picking up the flour, look for whichever one of the petals is completely flat. Don't use any of these and ruin the 3D effect you've created. You want to press that firmly in.
So you've just chosen one that looks sort of flatter, so you could stick it in the middle or you could stick it by a petal.
Exactly. And if you want to push it in the middle, try not to use your fingertips, because then you leave fingerprints. You could just use anything that's rounded.
Okay.
Just to push that in.
Like maybe a little teaspoon or something.
Again, like a little teaspoon. You're just trying to make the cake look, you know it's handmade, but you don't want it to look too handmade.
No,
fingerprints
not
on.
the fingerprints, not so great. And it looks really lovely. I like that you've put the poppies at different heights.
Because in nature, that's how they occur. So as human beings, we have this urge, especially when we're learning a new skill, to make everything look pristine. But if you're drawing inspiration from nature, you have to be a little bit, you know, carefree with it. Just let loose, shake yourself out a little bit, and then just place it and see where it falls.
I like that, though, because I feel like it makes it a bit easier.
It does make it a lot easier.
I'm not a perfectionist, Cynthia, so, you know, all neatly in a row is not my style. Have you got any last sort of tips for anyone who's just thinking about sort of cake decorating?
I think if you're trying to start cake decorating, the most important thing I can say to you is practice, practice, practice. Don't try and go and learn everything in a school before you make your first cake, because you're never going to actually perfect your skills that way. Offer your services basically freely to everyone.
Like that.
Because the more you practice, I actually went to a cake school, so the more you practice, the better you will get.
And I'm sure we'll be happy to sample anything you try. Now, we are going to have a bit of a taste, aren't we? So I suppose I better invite Chaz in. You know, they say sharing is
Cake
caring.
my face off.
Shall I do the honours then?
Please do.
OK, thank you so much. I feel like a bride again. So what flavour have we got in here, Cynthia?
You've got a lemon cake.
Ooh, yum. It's quite tall as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I like when you're making a painted cake, you want to give yourself a bigger canvas to paint on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Look at that. Shall I just chop this one up a bit, Chaz, and you can have...
Look at the layers.
You can have this little small piece from the
I
end.
see. OK.
Oh, I'm making a real mess of your beautiful cake, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Absolutely fine.
Here we go.
Generosity is overflowing.
There we go, look. There we go, Cynthia, it's a bit for you. Oh, I should not cut cakes, should I? But it looks absolutely delicious. Well...
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah, I just had a crumb. That's delicious.
That is absolute heaven.
Right, well, Chaz finishes his piece. That's all from us. Many thanks to our guest, Jason Arnott, Thomas Ralph and the Small Truth Theatre, as well as lovely Cynthia Stroud.
We will be back the same time, same place tomorrow with a new band, a look into new mixology techniques, and a conversation with the man behind London's leading improv training academy. Until tomorrow, I'm Chaz Redhead.
And I'm Catherine Goldsmith. But before we go, here's tonight's band, Jojo O and the Woods, playing us out with the track Hellhound. Cheers.
I've been a sinner, oh Lord, I've been a saint, been anything that I needed to be to make my way. I walked 1,000 years barefoot through these halls. I carried the weight of this world on my back and broken bones. Oh, there's a big black dog, and she's nipping at my heels. Yeah. Oh, better run, run, run before she drags me down, 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 down. I've done some bad things, you know I've gone wrong. What was I meant to do with my back against the wall? won't you tell me what it is I could have done? Could I have been a better woman? Could have given you a son? My mother always told me you gotta do what you must do. Oh, but now these hungry hellhounds they're staring me down. And they're staring me down. Down, 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 down.